Hey guys, welcome to the Smart Venture Podcast. In each episode, we're going to have conversations with some of the top investors, superstar founders, as well as well-known tech company executives in Silicon Valley. We'll have a coffee chat with them to learn their way of thinking and actionable tips on how they build or invest in a successful company. Before we start our show today, I want to make sure the listener, aka you, understand that everything a person say on the podcast only reflects hers or his own opinion, not the show or the company they work at. Our guest today is a Chief Product Officer at WW, formerly known as Weight Watchers. She leads the WW member experience across all digital channels. Prior to WW, she was a VP at Walmart and Sephora, where she led product management for all the online shopping and was responsible for the entire portfolio of omni-channel digital experiences across product management and design. Her name is Lucinda Newcomb. This episode is the first part of the conversation with Lucinda. We'll focus on how Lucinda started her career in tech and product management. Hi, Lucinda. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Grace. Really enjoying it.
Lucinda, you've worked on product at so many iconic companies. As someone came from a liberal arts background, to start the show, can you tell us more about how you grew up and how you got into product management?
Sure. Yeah. So, it's so funny. I believe product managers are discovered. This is something where you don't grow up as a kid thinking like, I know, I'm going to grow up and be a product manager, right? But, I came to tech so honestly, like I was 14 before I realized that other people's dads didn't build computers in their den with a soldering iron. I mean, I grew up, in the 80s and it was both my parents were in tech and it was so weird and so unusual. So, tech was something that's always been in my blood. But, getting to be a product manager has been such an interesting journey. And as Chief Product Officer at WW, I lead product management, design, experience, research. I also lead our core program definition. And, all of this delivered across all of our digital and virtual experiences. But, it's so funny because when people ask me, they're like, what is product management anyway? I'm like, well, product management is at the intersection of business and technology, defining, designing, and delivering digital experiences that delight customers and drive business impact. Mm-hmm. And, again, that's just something that, you don't grow up as a little girl thinking like, I'm going to go delight customers and drive business impact.
So I saw that your first job after college was a financial analyst at the U.S. Treasury. How does the experience early on in your life impacted your career later on?
So it's interesting. So in the 9 months that I've been at WW leading product, we created virtual workshops. So harken back to early March. We went from, we've got these great workshops everybody goes to physically in person. We sit around, we talk about the program, we give tips, etc. And it was, oh my God, we need to put that virtual now because things are going to shut down. And so we created virtual workshops. And so, so much of product management. And since then, by the way, we've done incredible work expanding our digital experience, adding in personalization, a more holistic approach to wellness. We've launched Digital 360, which is where we brought more coaching, virtual coaching in there to have coaching anytime you want. But all of those things, as I said, it's really about how do you bring business and technology together. And so, but look, product managers are discovered. So let me tell you a little bit about my meandering journey and how I found myself to this place. My first job out of college. So I graduated college in 1994, last century, literally. And I had this dual degree in political science and economics from Swarthmore College, which is awesome liberal arts school. And yet they taught me how to think, but they didn't teach me anything about how to have a career. And so I was like, okay, I was 21 and I was like, political science plus economics equals U.S. Treasury. It was such a simple question, right? Obviously. So I went there to actually be a financial analyst. And within about 2 minutes realized, oh my God, just shoot me. Because the bureaucracy, the pace, just the sheer, the pace was stifling. And, it was me, a little upstart 21-year-old. I'm like, let's go. Yeah, that didn't go over well. So I was very lucky that I ended up going to Gartner Group very shortly thereafter. And Gartner Group, let's harken back to 1995. Not only was there no tech crunch, nobody had heard of the internet. I mean, can any of you imagine that? Like, this is pre-internet days, and and everybody's going, nobody will ever put their credit card on such a thing, right? So back in the day, Gartner Group was, this group of tech industry analysts. And it was a bunch of older, super smart men who'd been all men, who'd been in technology for 30, 40 years. And their idea was they were analytical, they were strategic. They also had really great communication skills, and they could help advise people on how to bring technology into their business and get the most out of it. And at the time, they were realizing they were running out of these old super smart dudes who'd done it before, and they had to go find some new talent. And so I joined in this program. I know, right? All the time, they'd be like, yeah, we had to hire some IROCs. You know what an IROC is? An idiot right out of college. That was what they called it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Excuse my language. But these old guys, the whole thing though, was they thought, hey, if we can get these like youngins who are strategic, have communication skills, are analytical, all the stuff that's hard to teach, well, boy, we can teach them tech. So over the course of the 2-year training program, basically they were getting slave labor. But I learned so much about tech, and not just about technology, but really about how to look at technology from a broader perspective and think about the technology industry and see the trends and see how it all fits together. One of my mentors would always say, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just a new wrapping. And so from there, the dot-com boom happened. I went into consulting. I was in consulting for 6 years during the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust, which was a lot less fun. But really, between the two, I spent about 10 years helping these big old school companies trying to figure out what to do with this crazy newfangled internet thing that was hitting them upside the head. And, spent a lot of time advising these companies and helping them figure out what their strategy was. And helping them figure out how to then launch things. I mean, we were launching the first websites for so many of these big companies. Truly, didn't know what they were doing otherwise. But after 10 years of doing that, I was so tired of clients telling me where to fly to on a Monday morning. I just got married, and I was sort of like, I can't keep this up forever. And I talked to a really good friend of mine at Yahoo, and I was like, what is this thing called? I don't even know what this is on the other side of the desk. And she said, and she diagnosed me. She goes, you, my friend, are a product manager. And she was right. And so honestly, I went to work for her at Yahoo actually, and then realized how much I love consumer brands, big scale consumer brands. I love e-commerce. I've just had a tremendous time over the past 15 years since, pivoting into product management. But really, I like to tell people, if you love seeing the big idea and seeing the big strategy, but you also are nerdy enough to love getting in the details to figure out how to deliver and launch it, you too might be a product manager.
It is the hottest job now to be a PM. A lot of my friends, even when I was working in VC, my friends were saying they want to find a path to become a PM. You have such a unique path to product. As someone didn't come from a technical background, how would you navigate your way into product management now?
Yeah, I think, everybody comes to product management from different directions. As I said, it's the intersection of business and technology. And so many product managers, you're somewhere on that spectrum and on the seesaw between, do you veer more on business side, do you veer more on technology side? But ultimately, it's about being able to see both of those and being able to understand both of those and see the connections and see across. And so, I have all these people come to me and say, well, do I have to spend time on the tech side of things? No, you didn't. Do I have to spend time on the business side of things? No, you didn't. The fact is, the most important thing you can bring to the table is the ability to listen and learn. Because so much of product management is about inventing new things, right? It's about seeing the white space. In e-commerce, we'd always talk about, our conversion, we're 4 or 5%, WW, we're a little better than that. But the fact is, you're always looking at, hey, our conversion, these are the percentage of prospects who we get to, buy things from us and be paying members. But so much of product management isn't about looking at who does convert. It's about looking at who doesn't and why didn't they? And that white space, that open question of what problems do we need to solve for these potential members that will help them see that we actually are here for them. And so it's thinking about that white space and how to fill that white space with something that genuinely provides value to the people who you're trying to serve.
Totally.
And that doesn't require you having a degree in product management.
I'm going to say something really obvious, but I love your personality. How do you be so authentic? I feel like it's really hard to be lighthearted and fun at the same time when getting many things done. How do you keep up the energy? I love what you said about essentially you don't need to be a tech genius to be a PM. Curious, when you first came to WW, how do you quickly learn more about the existing product, and what were 3 actions you took to figure out what needed to be built?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I believe you become who you are in your 20s. You start to understand it if you're lucky in your 30s. And in your 40s, you know, I used to think when I was in my 30s, I used to think that in my 40s, okay, now I'm going to go fix all this stuff. And I got to my 40s and I was like, oh no, this is when I get to lean into it and be like, this is my hero power. This is who I am, all y'all. Right. And it's so free. It's so free. And a lot of that happened for me. It happens for me at WW because I find myself in a culture where the things that are my natural instincts, which are really kind of 3 key things. I'm very get shit done. I like to go fast. I talk fast. I'm trying not to talk fast. I talk fast. I think fast. I decide fast. But I'm also incredibly collaborative. I tell people I'm a compulsive collaborator. You literally can't stop me from collaborating with people because I love how you work together to get it right. But then the third piece is I'm obsessed with what are the needs of the customer that I'm trying to solve for, and what are the needs of the member I'm trying to solve for. And in the WW culture, I found my people. Like, we're all equally obsessed with what are we solving for our member. And so we're all equally obsessed about collaboration, getting things done. You know, at the end of the day, when you find yourself in a culture that naturally values the things that are your inherent natural tendencies, it can be a huge amplifier. I mean, 10 years in consulting, let's say, one of my hero powers was resiliency and adaptability. Like, I could figure out a way to get along with anybody if I had to, because I had to. It is so freeing, and it is such a huge empowerment to find a culture that just naturally appreciates who you are. And so all of a sudden what happens is you stop second guessing all your, should I make this decision? Is this the right decision? Are they going to like me if I make this decision? You suddenly stop second guessing that because you say, no, my instinct and who I am, I'm here because of who I am. And they value me for that. And all of a sudden, all those trappings and all the crap that goes on in your head and all that inner voice, the inner, it's like, it just gets so much easier to quiet it when you find yourself in this environment that really naturally appreciates who you are. So I was looking for that. I had found that briefly at Sephora. I've seen glimpses of it before, but here at WW, I mean, the year that I've been here has just been remarkable to feel like I've really found my people. And, the fact is, it made it a lot easier. So when I did come in, as I mentioned, it started March 9th. Talk about extreme onboarding. That was quite a week. But, what it meant was, and by the way, a lot of, I think, in a crises don't make you who you are. Crises reveal who you are, and they reveal who organizations are. And our chief people officer, Kim Seymour, who's amazing, would just sit there and she's like, this is truth serum time, right? And yet the days it took us to launch these virtual workshops, the amount that just, hundreds of people on a Zoom call, nobody raised a voice. Nobody got angry. Nobody got all, it was just this incredible sense of everybody coming together to solve for what we needed to solve for in what was truly an unprecedented moment, as we all know, and then continuing along that path. And so I had really interesting extreme onboarding because I had this whole plan of my first 90 days, how I was going to learn all about the business and all about the research and then talk to customers and go to a bunch of member workshops. I've literally not been able to go to a member workshop because they shut down on my second day. All these plans, right? Because normally how you go about it is the first place you always start with the customer. You always start with your customer, and you start with who's your current customer. and what are their needs, and what needs are we solving for them? What unmet needs do they have? And then you look for that white space, that other 90%, and you say, who else do we want to design for? Who's our design target? What are their needs? What is it that we have that we can apply to them, but also what do we need to invent to go after them? But ultimately, it's always about who are you targeting as your customer and what need are you solving for them? You know, I was listening to your interview with Monty Moran the other day, and I just thought he was phenomenal, by the way. And he talked at one point about, you know, I don't invest in founders who are founding a company because they want to make money. I invest in founders who are so passionate, like this must be, you know, something that happens and providing value. And I feel the same way from a product management perspective. It doesn't matter what size company. If you're focusing on solving a legitimate need, delighting your customers with that legitimate need, the way that we are at WW, I mean, we are so obsessed about, look, we are here to help empower you to change your life, change those behaviors, and it's hard. But what can we give you to help support you on that journey? And seeing what are those needs? We all need accountability. We all need support. We all need inspiration. How do you find those universal needs and deliver experiences that genuinely help our members on their journey?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for listening to the last episode. In your past experiences, you've worked at Sephora, Walmart, and WW. All these companies shared one characteristic, which is all of them have physical and digital component. Curious, as a product leader, how do you design a coherent online and offline experiences? When you started working at those companies, they already had a core product. How do you adapt strategies on top of existing products?
Sure. So there's really only one answer. In this crazy, messy world where we have all these channels, there's only one answer. You have to put the customer at the center of everything you do. You know, I think back about when I was at Gap back in, 2007, 8, we used to have this joke about mobile because it wasn't like mobile hadn't really happened yet, right? And we always had this joke of, it's like in Say Anything, they was talking about kickboxing being the sport of the future. And we're like, mobile, it's the sport of the future, right? Because we all had all these devices, but nobody really knew how to do anything with it. And along came the iPhone. Along came the iPhone, which I was like, my precious, right? We all hug our iPhones when we think about it. So, along came the iPhone, and all of a sudden it was this incredible opportunity. But also, you know what it did? It shined a big fat spotlight on how easy it had been for all of us in these traditional companies to leave the retail, leave the traditional alone, build up this whole new P&L around e-commerce, around digital, and never the twain shall meet. I mean, I remember some of those Gap parties and things where it's like digital over here, retail over there. And that was a pretty well integrated company. The fact is it was so easy to be multi-channel versus being omni-channel. But boy, the phone just threw that all out the window because all of a sudden, nobody's ever walking down your aisles carrying their laptop. They sure they're carrying their phone, right? And so if all of a sudden your customer is in your aisle and they have more information at their fingertips than your store associates do or than your coach does, you've got a problem, right? And the moment you stop thinking about it as who is our digital customer and who is our physical customer and start thinking about it as there's just one customer and she wants to interact with us. At Sephora is always she. WW, we have more, not just she, but like our customer, however our member wants to interact with us, we've got to be there. We're not going to tell her or tell him when to go to physical versus when to come to virtual. We need to be where they want us to be. That's the only way to actually make this work is to think about why does our member pick up her phone versus want to go into the studio? She's solving a different use case. She's solving a very different need. And she's telling us what she expects in that moment. And so as soon as you put your thinking to the member at the center and recognize it's one member, and it's our job to take the complexity out of it. It's our job to make it super easy and seamless and obvious when to come to us through which touch point, what they're going to get in each of those touch points. Why is that touch point delivered virtually versus digitally versus physically? That's our job. And so as soon as you put the member or the customer at the center, everything else gets a lot easier. I mean, I still just remember at Gap, I was like, all of a sudden, e-commerce and physical meeting, it was like, we felt like we were in the Ghostbusters. We're like, oh my God, don't cross the streams, right? And then something magical happened. And we look back and we say, wow, mobile has been an incredible leap forward. But boy, was it scary when it first happened, because it really did invert the entire paradigm of how this customer, how this member, they're the ones in charge. It's our job to make sure that we deliver to them what they want.
Yeah, I love it, by the way. So first of all, I love the energy. It's so contagious. I totally agree with you that it should start with the customer, identifying their needs and creating a fully immersed experience. In terms of execution, what would be the first 3 things you do as the Chief Product Officer?
So let me tell you a story. Might be a good way to help elucidate your question. So we just literally 2 days ago launched our new Digital 360 program. Mm-hmm. And it is, it's built on our digital app experience. It's built on our core weight loss and wellness program. But it is really targeted at a new design target. It's targeted at a much younger millennial member. And, it's so funny that, we talk about that, sometimes people say, well, this isn't your mom's weight loss program. It's like, well, when was your mom ever wrong? Like, your mom is right. Like, the program works. Let's be clear. But how it is perceived and how you want to consume it is very different, right? When I think about, honestly, my mom did it when I was 8. I remember I used to always steal her WW brownies. I did it in 2008. But now, as we think about how do we go after this younger millennial who's just had kids, super busy, but also really native to the social experience. And so we started from a place of, we know weight loss. We know behavioral change. Like, these are the things that are they're backed by science. They're not like, hey, Johnny come lately, like, I wonder if we do this. Like, we have a proven 57-year track record of delivering weight loss. And so we know some of those universal needs: accountability, support, feeling seen. These and many others are the key needs that we know people have. But how you want to experience those is going to be very different than how I want to experience it, very different from how my mom wants to experience it. And so we really had to put ourselves in the frame of, it's the same need, but the mechanisms and the solution that's going to, in fact, help this new target is different. And so launching Digital 360 with both the core digital experiences we have, added on top of it, these incredible coaches. These coaches we're launched right now. We've launched, I think we have 8 of them right now. We're going to expand them. But these coaches, go on there and watch one of their Coach Live events where they spend 15 minutes. They answer questions. I was watching one. She's like sitting on her bed. She's like, it's time to talk about sleep. And, just like brings it so to life and so aspirational, but also relatable, and does it all in the frame of, hey, I understand the journey you're on, right? How do I help you unpack this? And by the way, you don't have to schedule when you watch this experience. You can take it anytime you want, right? You can come live and participate in the chat, or you can watch it at 3 a.m. when you're having trouble sleeping and you're stress eating. It's really this, we think about it, I call it the accountability hug. Because then we also have this whole community that, is fired up, and, you come because the coach starts the fire and then the community helps fan the flames. Like, how do you create this community of these awesome coaches and these really supportive communities that you just feel like, hey, when I need that help, I know where to go. And I joke about, our app needs to be our emotional support animal, right? You got to put a little yellow jacket on it, take it on the plane with you. But like, whatever you need, that's what we need to bring in this app to you. And whether you're doing it yourself, whether you want the help of a coach, we need to think about how and what you need. So we just launched that 2 days ago. We are beyond excited about it. It really is. It is. I'm so excited about it. So, and we're going to continue to test and learn and iterate, because obviously that's what we always do in digital, the coaches and bringing new coaches to life. But the fact is, it's really a great story of, and it took a village. It took the entire organization to do this. And it took all of us reframing our understanding of the core member needs with how does this new design target want to experience it? And that's where we looked at that white space. And that's where we created some real magic. So very excited to hear what you think of it.
Wow, I love that you just started with a story and you baked your product creating philosophy into the story. Whatever you just said was so compelling. You mentioned about the philosophy of creating a product and how you came up with a new 360 program, giving women support when they need it. In terms of leading a team to execute on the plan, how do you come up with a KPI for yourself and your team? What's your vision and how do you implement it?
So I believe, so when I think about what my OKR is, what's my definition of success as Chief Product Officer, because by the way, I love me some Digital 360. It's our new baby, but I've got other babies too. I love our digital experience. I love our workshops, I'm not supposed to play favorites. But the fact is, I look at this as my job isn't just about leading a team to create world-class product experiences. Because the fact is, you may have perfection today, but a week from now, what have you done for me lately? Because the world has moved on. And so it's not about being perfect in a moment and trying to solidify that in amber. It's about building an organization that is world-class, that is constantly pushing itself, constantly asking the right questions, constantly collaborating across. Because the fact is, we need to be data-driven, but we can't be driven by the data. That we need to find ways to bring the gut instinct, which is, I always like to say, it's the combination of the head and the heart, right? It's the analytics with your passion and your intellect, but it's the gut from all that experience. When you bring that together, that's what helps really fuel that innovation. And we need to create an environment that cultivates a world-class organization. But I will also say, the role of a product manager, there's really 4 things that good product managers need to be able to do. Number 1 is have a well-informed point of view of what should happen. Not just what could happen, not what so-and-so said should happen, but what should happen. And it has to be well-informed. It can't just be you went off in a corner and cooked it up all on your own and you have this idea and you think you're right. It is well-informed by the collaboration that happens across all of these teams. The fact is, it's not your job. Whenever somebody says the product manager is the CEO of the product, I'm like, well, that implies that they're not listening, that they don't need all these other elements. It's a team sport. This is basketball, not a relay race. Getting it right, having that well-informed point of view requires that listening we talked about. It requires bringing your tech partners, your design partners, your brand partners, your science partners, all of these different partners into the mix to look at what problem we're trying to solve. And now how do we together think about what's the best possible way to solve it? Because it's not just what could we do, because we do not lack in ideas. It is what should we do, because this is the best, the juice is worth the most squeeze of here's what should we do. Now, that's 1 of 4. The second one is you darn well better know why. Why is this the right answer and not something else? And that comes from sort of a checksum on the informed part of the point of view. Just because you have a strongly held belief doesn't make it right. So how do you articulate the why? Why is this the right path forward? The third part is, oh, by the way, remember that Venn diagram, all those people involved? Yeah, you got to make sure you communicate to them, that you align all of them because they're all your stakeholders. Everybody who sits there and says, I get too much feedback. I'm like, no, it's not feedback. That's what collaboration is. It is about bringing in diverse points of view to work together to get it right. And let me tell you, you can either be right or you can get things done. You don't get to have both. So figure out how to get it right together instead of trying to tell people that you're right. And then the fourth thing is actually working with your engineers, code designers, coding it and launching it. And the fact is, so often when you look at a roadmap, all of the space and all of the time is dedicated to that fourth piece of execution. When 90% of the value of what product management does is in those first 3 steps. And it is not alone. It is in the collaboration of bringing all those diverse points of view together to come up collectively with here's what we should go do. So when I talk about Digital 360, that was not by any stretch just product management involved. We had such incredible partners. We had this amazing content team, the ones who produced the whole Oprah tour last year. They have Emmys, I am blown away every conversation I have with them. They brought so much of that sparkle of what does a good coach experience look like. I'm like, we're just the bowl. You brought all this sparkle, but they're incredible because they were creating these things, these walk talks. So like you can take a walk with Oprah. I can't even tell you the other people that are coming, but they're so, so exciting. So when you think about all of that, that is not just about product management, being the CEO and saying, you will go build this. It is about how do we create the space and create the parameters and create the guardrails of how do we define what is what we should do. And we do that by bringing everybody else together to that table.
All right. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smart Venture Podcast. In the next episode, we'll learn more about how Lucinda navigates her career as a Chief Product Officer. Don't forget to come back on Wednesday for the second part of the conversation with Lucinda. If you like it, please leave us a quick review and hit subscribe so you don't miss any tips from the experts. If you want to receive our updates, please leave your email at smartventurepod.com. If you want to connect with me, all my socials are at Grace Gong GG. Besides LinkedIn, it's just Grace Gong. I'd love to connect with you and let me know your thought about the show. Now you can also listen to Smart Venture Podcast on YouTube. Go to smartventurepod.com, click the YouTube link on the top banner. Don't forget to hit subscribe and smash the like button. See you next time.